Hazard warning. Entering contaminated zone. Transmissions jammed. Proximity coverage only. Backup activated. System rebooted.
What is going on, agents? Your man Sly here with another Division video. This time around, we're going to take a look at all the gear sets currently available, their bonuses, my thoughts on them, and ultimately crown a champ, the best of the best. I'm going to be going over all the bonuses and talents of sets available in 1.1 and in 1.2. So far, I dabbled in just about every setup except for one or two of the new ones because, frankly, most of the new ones kind of suck. Now, the Division, it's a great game, and I applaud it for its mold-breaking attempt, but it just misses the mark on several fronts. It tries to be an MMORPG looter shooter, but it doesn't quite get there yet. Diablo took years to get the loot system and combat gameplay fine-tuned, and just like Destiny, in its footsteps, which is also fine-tuning its game, the Division will no doubt evolve just like its predecessors. Now, any game that evolves the ability to heal yourself and others, pull enemy aggression, or dodge it, the appeal and opportunity is there for some real MMO shooter gameplay. But yet the Dark Zone puts a halt to it at every turn. Unless you want two completely different loadouts, players in the Division need to be able to heal themselves as well as defend themselves adequately. If not, you're dead weight to your team. Unfortunately, this makes being a healer or a tech-only player very, very difficult. There is a fine line between being a needed support player or a waste of a slot, and with the current setup, besides a few tech healing all-in-ones, it's hard to have a team comprised of different builds and be completely successful. Now, I'm not saying it isn't possible, but most teams run all self-healing DPS builds, and those prove to be the most successful. Well, gear sets like the ones in 1.2 were supposed to help bridge the gap between the ever-expanding rift of classes, but instead of fixing it, it only widened the crack, proving the SMG high-damage player as the only way to go if you want to be effective in all areas of Division gameplay. First up, let's take a look at the new setups. Now, I'm going to talk about them in order of my least favorite to the best in terms of my opinion and in terms of the full set. Last place in 1.2, Final Measure. I expected way more from this set than just being able to defuse one lousy explosive before the set is rendered useless until you activate it again with a lucky grenade. Set bonus of 2 is 50% exotic damage resilience, 3 set is 15% protection from elites, and the final talent, Final Measure. When throwing a grenade, gain the defuse buff. When in range of a hostile grenade, the buff is consumed and defuses the grenade, as well as give you a grenade back. That is, if you don't mess up and not hit a target. This only works if your grenade does damage to an enemy. Now granted, this can be used on any explosive, but how often do you have the reaction time to throw yourself in between your allies when a grenade goes off, if they're like on the other side of the street or if you're in cover elsewhere? It's just not gonna happen. While the 2 and 3 set bonuses are awesome, the Talon just smears this set. However, using 3 pieces of the set is something I'm experimenting with in a combination set piece. More on that a little later. Next up, we have Hunter's Faith. 20% marksman's rifle only critical hit damage for the 2 set piece. 3 set pieces gain you 20% damage to elite. Then the 4 set talent bonus, Hunter's Faith. Hitting an enemy with a bullet grants you temporary armor. The further your shot, the more armor. The armor will disappear after you get hit by 1 bullet. Why would you use this when you can use Sentry's Call and take down an opponent 4 times as fast? While this may stop snipers from one-shotting you in the challenge mode, this really does nothing for a team. Coming up in second place for 1.2, we have Predator's Mark, one of the new gear sets that was supposed to bridge the gap between the underpowered assault rifles. However, it still falls short. 2 set pieces grant you 20% optimal range, which, by the way, auto rifles absolutely do not need. 3 set bonus is 800 extra damage to ARs and 700 for pistols. Finally, the 4 set bonus, Predator's Mark. Land 10 shots without switching targets to make the target bleed for 100% of the damage done by those bullets. There is a lot of opportunity here, guys, and while it is a pretty decent talent, it is best utilized by shotguns. Each pellet in the Division counts as a bullet, so 2 shots from shotguns will fulfill the talent requirement, bleeding the target. However, unless you have a super high damage like M870, the rest fall way short in terms of DPS and don't do enough damage compared to something like an SMG. And while using this with a shotgun or an SMG, you're sacrificing the above two bonuses. Why do that when you can wear one that syncs well with all of them? This has the opportunity to be a complete beast, and hopefully with some fine tuning in the future, this thing will set itself apart from the rest. Finally, my favorite and number one in 1.2, the Lone Star. Another gear set supposed to bridge the gap, but again falls short. 2 set pieces increase ammo capacity by 100%. 3 set pieces gain you an extra 1000 damage to LMGs and shotguns, but considering most shotguns do damage upwards of 40 to 50k, it's not really all that big of a difference. However, for shotguns, this is 1000 extra damage per pellet and not in total damage. Then the final talent granted to 4 set pieces is Lone Star. Holstered weapons automatically reload. While this set isn't beast on paper, it does sync well with shotguns and LMGs, although they are still way too slow and underpowered. You know, I want whatever those SASG shotguns those LMB dudes are using. Those things are absolutely beast. But this set doesn't do a lot in terms of DPS, like I said, on paper, but in IRL it increases it drastically. Every millisecond you spend not reloading is an actual increase in overall DPS. Not by boosting it, but in the same way an extended mag increases your DPS. More bullets down range. With the extra ammo, I've had tons of fun with the double SMG build, and very few things can stand up to back-to-back clips of a Vector and AUG. While I like using this because I know I'll always be able to defend myself, it still feels a little empty. But being able to consistently do damage on a target goes a very long way, and you can see that once you unlock the 4th talent. So those were the new sets from worst to best, but now let's take a look at the original Beast 4. With Sentry's Call now working as intended, it is no longer the king of the sets, and this changes the meta to something I've been using since the start. So since we all know the old gear sets, I'm going to just briefly go over the old ones from worst to best. First up, Path of the Nomad, 50% scavenging, 20% health on kill, and a talent that doesn't work in PvP. It is horrible and needs to be reworked. A waste of a well-designed set in terms of looks. Tactician's Authority is an absolute beast, and it is number 3, but because of the whole "we want you to function as a team, yet if you do, you will die" kind of approach the Division has, this gear set doesn't get the recognition it deserves. 4000 skill power, 20% skill haste, and more skill power added to you the more damage that your team does. This can turn a tech healer sniper combo into a guy who can make a team almost invincible. However, it does leave the tech who's wearing it severely underpowered and very vulnerable. Smart cover is being used more and more these days, and if you want to see something awesome, have a team member use Tactician's Authority with smart cover. Get into cover with smart cover active and then watch your stats skyrocket. DPS, resistances, everything will keep going up as long as you're shooting enemies. This is a very underused gear set, but because you have to be a beast by yourself in the DZ, it almost gets no attention. So it gets the number 3 spot until we can rightfully get a protected tech or healer class. Next, Sentry's Call brings in number 2 overall. 30% headshot damage and 20% damage to elites. With its damage flagging and team coordinating ability, you can't frown about 45% extra damage. But now with it being limited to semi-autos only, the DPS king goes to the Striker's battle gear. While you still have to watch your firing, it syncs so well with the DPS SMG assault style player. 20% enemy armor damage, 100% critical hit damage, and then every consecutive hit deals 1% more damage from your total, up to 100% extra. This cannot be beat. The best combination and new king of the sets, in my opinion, goes to something a lot of us were running early on before everyone found out SMGs triggered the Sentry Call talent, and that was the Striker's Sentry combo. Depending on the type of playstyle you like, this combo is simply unbeatable. Adding 30% headshot damage to the Striker setups, it syncs unbelievably well with an SMG setup that uses Brutal and Fierce. It's not uncommon to see critical hits range in the hundreds of thousands, especially against a static target like drones, shotgunners, or heavies. In a close second, the Sentry Strikers or the Sentry Hunters combo is also a great choice for the long-range DPS player wielding a marksman rifle as his or her primary. Bold actions seem to hit criticals more frequently, and the extra damage from Hunter's Faith helps out with that tremendously. However, it only procs every so often, whereas having 20% extra enemy armor damage from the Sentry Striker combo is something that is there the entire time and goes a long way when battling bosses and heavily shielded opponents. So that's my verdict, guys. The Striker's Sentry setup is right now, in my eyes, the best one available for the position the Division puts most of its players in. Although everyone loves different playstyles and some can work in a team, depending on yourself is hard enough. Add worrying about another teammate in the DZ or in a challenge incursion, and that adds a whole nother level that is unneeded when you could have went full on DPS with the ability to heal yourself. We're still trying to find a great tech setup that can not only make a team great, but defend his or herself when needed. Tactician's Authority has tons of potential to steal the second place spot if it ups its protection or armor, but I recommend some of you mess around with high skill power and smart cover when you get the chance. It can be a game changer. But that's it, y'all. Thank you guys for watching and for sticking with a longer video. I try to keep mine as in-depth as possible, which makes them a little long. Either way, thanks for sticking with me and giving the smaller YouTuber a chance. I couldn't do this without you guys, and make sure you follow @SlyNation for new upcoming Division vids as well as new updates on our favorite games. I'm out, agents. Have a great rest of your week, and until next time, this is your boy Sly. Done, gone, out.
Ammo inbound. Zone B secure.